All right, welcome to the podcast, Pastor JD03. Yes, that's the name of this podcast, and I am Johnny Ogletree III, and I am ecstatic to have you here with us today. As you know, for those of you who have listened to this podcast before, I try to bring you some thoughts, something to think about, something scriptural, but also something that we're dealing with as a society that we can have dialogue around. And today, I am hoping that will be the same type of situation. I do love hearing from you. I love the emails. You can email me at Pastor Johnny at firstmet.org, or you can find me on any of the social medias by typing in hashtag Pastor JD03. Yes, that is also the name of this podcast. And you can find me on any of the social medias. And I would love to hear you respond back or reply back towards any of these podcasts because I do love the dialogue. Now, today, the podcast is titled Restitution is Not Restoration. Now, to give you a backdrop on how I came about this, first of all, I was reading in the book of Genesis. We were doing an entire study at the beginning of the month about family, and I ran across this passage and just I really never got to deal with it, but it was something that really touched me, and I wanted to come back to it. And then the Breonna Taylor situation took place. I know you know about Breonna Taylor. She was a young lady that was in her home with her boyfriend in her bed, and the police officers jump in, no knock warrant, hop in, end up shooting this young lady, and she dies. Well, you fast forward, the family they sue the city. And not only do they win an award, but they also win some changes in law, which is really what they were after, because it's not the money, and we'll get into that, why that's the title of this podcast. But they win some changes in the law that really should ensure, hopefully, that this does not happen to anyone else. Now, in Genesis, the 34th chapter, we have a situation. Now, you have this story that's revolving around the family of Jacob and how Jacob's family is moving into a new land. And when they get into this new land, he has this beautiful daughter named Dinah who is going out to meet her friends and to meet some new people in the neighborhood. And she runs across this local prince named Shechem. And this local prince Shechem takes a liking to her. He sees her amongst all of these young women, and he's like, I've got to have her. Well, he rolls up his sleeves, and even though Dinah says, no, thank you, Shechem abuses his power. He takes Dinah, he rapes Dinah, and then he just goes back to life like it's normal. Well, of course, eventually the word gets back to Jacob about what's happened to his daughter. Jacob is new to this land, to this country, to this city or countryside, or whatever you want to call it, and he's trying to figure out how does he handle this situation. And so fast forward, before he can really get a grasp of what to do in this situation, his sons find out about what's happened to their sister, and they want revenge. So let me read this verse for you. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, the prince of the land, saw her, he took her and lay with her by force. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, the prince of the land, saw her, he took her and lay with her by force. Of course, we've already set the scene for this. And so now what happens is that Jacob is trying to figure out how to handle this situation. Well, to fast forward, the king, Hamor, he comes to Jacob and he says, look, I'm sorry about what happened to your daughter. My son will marry your daughter. And in addition to my son marrying your daughter, your sons are allowed to marry the women in my family. And then in addition to that, I'll tell everybody in the city that they can now do commerce with you. They can do business with you, and now you can make profit. Well, Jacob, thinking logically, he says, okay, well, I can't do anything about my daughter being raped. Well, at least she'll be in the house of the king. So now I have favor with him. At least she'll be married and he'll right the wrong. So that works well. And then also, I'll be able to do commerce. So my family is going to prosper. Yeah, that makes a whole bunch of sense, right? But what about Dinah? And what about her feelings? Dinah is abused by this man, and now the response to her being abused is she gets the honor of being married to the one that is abusing her. Now that doesn't make any sense, right? He was going to allow her to be in a situation where the person that raped her, the person that took power from her, the person that humiliated her, the person that demoralized her, the person that attacked her self-esteem, his answer was, to make things right, I'll let you marry my daughter. And his sons heard about this and said, ain't no way. It doesn't matter what kind of money they offer. It doesn't matter what type of position she's going to be in. It doesn't matter what kind of power she will have from this point on. We are demanding that more than money be the response to the power that was asserted over our sister. We're demanding that more than money and laws be in exchange for the disrespect of our sister. We're demanding that more than some businesses and some cattle be exchanged for the abuse and the humiliation that our sister has gone through. And what happens is Jacob's sons, they trick the Hivites, and what they do is they convince them that they'll come into covenant with them if they circumcise themselves. And when they circumcise themselves, they use that moment when these young men are supposed to be healing to go in and actually slay everyone that's in sight. In other words, restitution is not restoration. Now, I'm saying that because when some of my friends that I went to school with in high school, they're of Anglo descent, and when the award was given to Dinah's family, they said, well, they should be happy now they have money. They should be happy now. They're millionaires because the government has now given them money. The police department has given them money and because of their daughter's death. So they should be happy. And what I was saying to them is restitution is not restoration. It does not matter how much money you give this family. Every time they spend $1 of this money, every vacation they take, every home they buy, every car they buy, every nonprofit that they start, every medical bill that they pay, every business that they start from a family member 2 to 3 generations down, they will know that this money came from the rape, the abuse, the disrespect, the murder, the assault, the power, the abuse of power from someone that had authority, the abuse of power of someone who had influence, the humiliation and the insult that happened to their daughter. They will always have to suffer with the sadness and the fears and the powerlessness and the mourning that took place from the loss of their daughter. They're not winning the lotto. They're not being awarded a gift in exchange for something. They know that they'll never spend another Christmas with their daughter. They'll never have another Thanksgiving. She'll never be in another family photo. She'll never call them again. She'll never email them again. They'll never see her update her social media profile. They'll never see her graduate from another college with another degree. They'll never see her advance in her career. They won't see these things. They won't see or hold the grandchildren that she was going to have for them. They will give her away in marriage to the man that she was going to marry. Restitution is not restoration. This family will continue to suffer from the death of their daughter. And Breonna Taylor won't experience any of this money. She won't experience any happiness. She won't experience promotion. She won't get to enjoy days like we get to enjoy days. The people that murdered this woman are going on and having a great life. They may not have $1 million in their pocket, but they can find another job. They can find another wife. They can have more kids. They can build another house. They can move to another city. They can move to another state. They can move to another country and start a whole nother life. So if you ask that family, or if you ask Breonna Taylor, would she rather wake up the next day and have to go to work, or to be laying in a grave? Or if you ask that family, would they rather trade this money back in to have a lifelong of happiness and memories from the past and in the future? Or would would rather go through trials and see these officers that killed her living a full and whole life, and to have to live each day knowing that their daughter was shot in her own bed? I'm sure if you asked them or offered them the exchange, that they would gladly give that money back in exchange for their daughter's life. Honestly, people, money doesn't fix everything. And it's a shame that we live in a world and in a society where we have people like this Prince Shechem, who are people who are in authority and who have power, who have influence, who feel like they can run roughshod through the world and do as they please and suffer no consequences. Now, according to the agreement that they made with Jacob, the reward that Shechem was going to get for his abuse of his power, for his disrespect for another human being, was a life of marriage to the woman who does not want him. A woman that will now be forced to sleep with him even though she does not want to be with him intimately, physically, emotionally. She will now be forced to live with him, and he will be rewarded because he'll get the prize that he wanted in the first place. He won't go to jail. His reputation isn't even going to suffer. He gets to keep on living his life happily ever after. But at some point, the abuse of our sisters has to stop. Now, I'm not saying that we should be like the sons of Jacob. Of course, I would never assert that we should respond in violence. But I do think that we need to stand up and give voice to those who are powerless. One of the things that we look at in this passage is that in this time, the voice of that woman was not very loud. Even if Dinah had chosen to speak up and to accuse this prince, her voice was not going to go very far. The reality is that she didn't have the position or the authority to do something like that. So she needed Jacob. She needed her brothers, who were men, who were property owners, who had money, who had influence, who had cattle, who had products that allowed them to do commerce and to hold the weight and authority, who had brawn and who could go to war. Jacob had some servants that could also go to war with him. She needed these men. She needed these brothers. She needed her father to give her a voice. And I'm saying to you, brothers and sisters, restitution is not restoration. There are still some people that are suffering in silence. There are still some people that are hurting from the abuse that they had to experience. And we, those of us who have a voice, those of us who have power, those of us who have influence, those of us who have the authority, need to be willing to sacrifice our status, to risk our reputation, to risk our finances, to risk our political endeavors, to ambitions, to risk our business endeavors, to speak up for those who are powerless. because I believe that's really what God would have us to do. Hey, look, I thank you for joining us on the podcast, Pastor JDO3, and I look forward to having more of these fun discussions with you. I want to hear from you about this topic, and I'm eager to hear what you have to say. Hey, you can reach me on any of the social media platforms, of course, by using the hashtag PastorJDO3. You can find me there, or you can email me at pastorjohnny@firstmet.org. Man, I sure want to hear from you. Add me, and I'll add you back. And I look forward to continuing some good discussions with you in the future. Hey, God bless you, and thank you for joining us on today's podcast.